This is a brief rundown of the end zone that, or one of the end zones that we're looking to run this year. And this is kind of the one that we'll expect us to. One thing that's important about these continuation cuts is that we would much rather have them too late than too early. The problem with continuation cuts that are too early is it confines the thrower to only throwing one throw. So a good example of a continuation cut that would be too early would be, if this player was here, because they predicted that this was going to go here and they started making their cut. It confines the person with the disc to throwing it around out here to space. And if this mark did a really good job of recovering and put on a hard no around mark, then they've effectively stopped a really really good scoring opportunity just by putting on a no around mark. What would be a lot better is if by the time uh, the thrower got the disc, this cut had just started, and now they have two lanes to throw to, right? They have an inside lane that they can throw to, and they have an around lane that they can throw to. And like we talked about in the marking video, it's really really hard for a mark to stop multiple break throws. But if you only give them one opportunity, there's a good possibility that they'll be able to stop it. So long story short, try to do your continuation cuts later rather than earlier. This is a very brief rundown of one of the end zones that we're going to run this year. And it is sort of it's pretty common nowadays, but it's sort of like a three-player dominator-ish is what I like to refer to it as, because there's some latitude for filling upfield. So primarily these three players, their job is to get the disc moving, generate opportunities to throw upfield for scores on the break side, or to kind of score with uplines. So a lot of give and goes, basically this is their zone to try to score on. But something that we're not going to be concrete about, right, is that there's only three players involved in the end zone. That doesn't make much sense. That's not, it's just not very efficient. So what these players in the end zone are kind of looking to do primarily is to really search for opportunistic fill opportunities. Opportunistic opportunities. Yeah, that's how important the opportunity part is. So we're not going to do a system where the person in the front cuts because they're in the front. What we're going to do is a system where the person in the front cuts because they see an opportunity to score. They see a really, really good opportunity generating to score. Same thing if you're in the back, right? If you're in the back here and you're poached, it's kind of the same thing. You have an opportunity to score, but recognize that picks are super likely and picks are kind of devastating to our momentum-based end zone offense. So you have to be really, really open to be able to do that from the back. But a good example of an opportunity that a player might be looking for is the front of the stack's kind of hanging out. Uh, this player here sweeps behind, and the disc goes to them. I'm not going to change colors. Instead, I'm just going to move the circles. Um, and then this player follows up for a continuation, right? And now the disc goes to them. So at this point, there's no continuation opportunity at all for these players here, and there's a really 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 good continuation opportunity for this player here. So basically, your job when you're sitting up here at the front or anywhere in the stack is to evaluate what's happening with the handlers and pounce on opportunities to score, particularly focused on when the handlers generate an opportunity to score on the break side. As a handler in the system or a person who is part of the group of dominators, it's really your job to cut very selfishly, if that makes sense. The objective of this is not to have handlers cutting and clearing and cycling. The objective of this is sort of to have the same group of three people gain momentum by moving a lot and capitalizing on the separation that movement generates. So a really good example of this is if this player here was to cut up line and was guarded. If this was sort of like a standard offense, they might continue up and hang out. But oops, sorry, the mark would be over here. What they really need to do is if they were guarded so tightly here that they couldn't get the disc, they need to stop very quickly and start using the separation they gain to go this way, with the expectation that this player would get the disc down here. So assuming that that player made an upline cut, this player came back and got the disc. This person's responsibility is not to let this player recover. You're cutting really hard, you're stopping, you're going as fast as you can right after it, continuing to maintain the separation that you earned. So these players right up here, it's sort of an odd cutting style that a lot of people are, at the start are sort of uncomfortable with, but think to yourself, you got to be really selfish, right? You got to be really, really selfish. You got to cut and not cycle out. And lastly, if you find yourself in this situation and you want to cycle out, you're uncomfortable, you don't want to do it, you certainly can. You just need to, continue your way up, say I'm out, find yourself in the stack, and it's the responsibility kind of the front of the stack to fill.